Hello and welcome to this special edition of Cronkite News. I'm Bridget Dowd. Thanks for joining us. Our news mission is to bring comprehensive public policy reporting to the state of Arizona, and part of that coverage focuses on legal action, law enforcement, and our legislative system. Here's a look back at some of our top stories on the government and justice beat.
A Valley man who is living on the streets this morning will soon be moving into his very own home thanks to Project Connect. Reporter Emily Richardson takes us through the one-day outreach event that gives homeless and near-homeless individuals access to services.
Get housing, I hope I get that now to get where I'm going to be, so that's my really big thing right now.
Charlie Noon is one of the more than 2,000 people in Maricopa County who are currently unsheltered.
We could possibly get you into a place today.
Project Connect includes services such as housing connections, places to shower, get clothes and haircuts, as well as providers who help them get new identification. While Noon and his helping volunteer, Gina Amoroso, waited to hear about his housing, Noon got his vision tested, went to the MVD for a new license, DES to get food stamps, and got his haircut.
It'd be awesome to get into a place today.
Yeah.
Someone can come just like
Get my own bed and everything, I don't have to worry about it.
Amoroso volunteers here because Project Connect found her housing 2 years ago when she was pregnant, and she considers these people her family.
I didn't think you would miss being on the streets, but you gain a family when you are on the streets. And that family never goes away. So when I come to Project Connect, it's almost like I'm home in a way.
And right before lunch, Noon found out that he would have a place to live tonight.
I don't have to be on the street no more.
Noon is now one of the more than 13,000 individuals that have been helped by Project Connect. In Phoenix, Emily Richardson, Cronkite News.
The next Project Connect is on December 14th in Central Phoenix.
With the enrollment period cut in half this year, people only have 6 weeks to sign up for coverage. Reporter Emily Richardson talked with people here in Arizona to see how the enrollment process is going.
The insurance company with the employer costs us about $3,000 a month, and this drastically reduces us and helps us, or else we wouldn't be able to afford that insurance where we would need.
Donald Kennedy is renewing his health insurance coverage today through the marketplace. He and his wife are retired and depend on the low-cost coverage they signed up for today. Saving money is one of the main reasons David Aguirre from Cover AZ says people are finding insurance through the Affordable Care Act.
It's very important because we know healthcare costs has gone up a lot. So if you don't have a health insurance, then when you end up in a hospital or something, then it will break your bank.
Others say ACA coverage helps provide preventative services, many times without charging a copay.
Cervical cancer, breast cancer screenings, all the stuff that people can access when they have health insurance at no copay, that's just really critical. We've heard stories from women who've had breast cancer diagnosed early enough so that they have a simple lumpectomy, they're able to recover quickly from cancer.
Cover AZ wants Arizonans to use their website to connect with local application assisters such as Cogue Health Connection Center in Phoenix. Having assistance with your application can increase your savings on health insurance.
People that fill out an application on their own are much more likely to make mistakes.
Kennedy says he believes it's important for the general public to get help with finding coverage.
Representatives are very knowledgeable, where we're just out there kind of stumbling around the internet trying to figure out which way to go and which plan would be the best, and they kind of compile it all here and everything's right in one area.
All you need to do to get help finding coverage is make an appointment and bring in the proper papers and identification. In Phoenix, Emily Richardson, Cronkite News.
Cover AZ is allowing Arizonans to make appointments for help finding coverage through December 15th. Local agriculture producers could participate in a potential 2018 Farm Bill hearing in Arizona to determine what is and isn't working in federal farm policy. Cronkite News reporter Holly Bernstein looked into some of the proposed cuts to the bill.
I spoke with local agriculture experts to find out what potential cuts to SNAP could mean for local farms and the state economy. Abbey Lee Farms owner Neil Brooks developed a love for farming at a young age.
I started when I was 13 in my backyard, growing and selling houseplants at flea markets.
Eventually, he grew a business.
Now we have 1,000 acres of production space. 500,000 square feet of greenhouses.
Now farms like his are paying attention to the Farm Bill, which gets passed approximately every 4 to 5 years by Congress. President Donald Trump's fiscal year 2018 budget proposes reforms to Farm Bill programs like the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, which provides food purchasing assistance to low-income people. Farms like Abbey Lee Farms utilize programs like SNAP so their customers can get their produce. Brooks says reductions to SNAP would hurt.
What people understand is that there's two parts of it. Everybody says, well, it's government spending, but it's also income to the farmer. So you're getting that money returned to the economy.
The president's budget proposal would reduce SNAP expenditures over the next decade by tightening eligibility. It could save an estimated $194 billion over 10 years. SNAP participation grew during the recession, but expenditures weren't as high as expected in the last Farm Bill in 2014.
One good thing is that we found that, with the economy in the last, 4 years or so has been pretty strong. And because of that, there's less people needing SNAP.
Manfredo says he doesn't expect to see SNAP completely eliminated in the future. And Brooks says to him, SNAP is the most important part of the bill.
We don't need to have people that are hungry in the United States. It's a sick thought. So that I don't think people understand that part of the biggest part of the Farm Bill is public assistance, really.
Brooks hopes he can continue feeding families in need his farm fresh produce. And according to data from the USDA, over 898,000 Arizonans in July of this year participated in SNAP. Live in Phoenix, Holly Bernstein, Cronkite News.
Our Cronkite News team is investigating the numbers and digging into the gun sales and federal background checks in our state. Reporter Jasmine Spearing-Bowen joins us now in the broadcast center.
No permits are required to purchase or own a firearm in Arizona. And although background checks are required to buy a gun from a federally licensed dealer, no such checks are required for person-to-person sales.
Every mass shooting, from Sutherland Springs in Texas this week to Newtown, Connecticut 5 years ago, brings the same calls for stricter gun regulations.
The most severely injured that we got were 3 children that we took to the operating room immediately and 1 adult, and all had multiple gunshot wounds.
In the blink of an eye, your whole life can change. Here it is, 26 little kids gone.
Arizona has some of the least restrictive gun laws in the country, with no permit required to own a gun and background checks only required for guns bought from federally licensed dealers, not through private sales. State Representative Randy Freese is a trauma surgeon and worked on Representative Gabby Giffords after the 2011 shooting in Tucson. He has introduced several firearm safety bills, including one for comprehensive background checks on all gun sales, but none have passed.
About 40% or so purchases in Arizona of weapons is done without a background check through personal, person-to-person sales, things like that, or even at gun shows where if you're not a federally licensed dealer, you're not required to do the background check.
Federally licensed dealers are required to run background checks through the National Instant Criminal Background Check System on anyone purchasing a firearm since 1998. More than 111 million background checks were performed nationally through 2016 by the FBI. 1.3 million of those were denied, according to a 2016 FBI report. Charles Heller is part of the Arizona Citizens Defense League, which works to strengthen Second Amendment rights through legislation.
Generally speaking, it's a lot easier for most people to own a firearm than most people in the country who don't own firearms think it is. And the vast majority of them are law-abiding.
Heller said the recent mass shooting in Las Vegas proves that background checks don't prevent crimes.
If you look at all the major mass shootings, the criminals either bypassed the background check or passed it before they committed the crimes.
Freese said he will continue to push for new gun safety measures.
Sitting back and saying we can't do anything about it is not acceptable. It's simply not acceptable when people are dying.
There is no way for Arizonans to really know how many guns are in the state because there is no requirement to disclose certain sales. Freese estimates that 40% of gun sales in Arizona are never recorded. For our full multimedia investigative report on Arizona's gun sales and statistics, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org. Jasmine Spearing-Bowen, Cronkite News.
Police officers from across the country are in Mesa today, analyzing the use of force in their departments. Reporter Sydney Eisenberg shows us how they're looking at real-life examples to improve policing.
NYPD, LAPD, and other police departments from across the nation flock to Mesa to discuss better ways to investigate police use of force.
There's lots of people that train about use of force and the dynamics of use of force and things like that, or the legal implications. But we're focused on how do we actually go out there to a scene and investigate it.
The conference dove into specific cases from police departments across different regions of the country to discuss when to interview officers after an incident, how to classify use of force cases, and ways to improve use of force investigation overall. Arizona is no stranger to use of force controversy. The Phoenix Police Department was criticized after officers used pepper spray and foam bullets to disperse a crowd after President Donald Trump's rally back in August. Phoenix PD does have written use of force guidelines that outline when officers should use different response options, including the use of chemical agents. According to those guidelines, a supervisor must complete a use of force report after the use of chemical agents only if someone complains of injury. Captain Herjak says that what happened during President Trump's visit can be used as an example by all departments.
It's very obvious that there's a lot of public demand for transparency and use of force, but there's also a huge demand for fairness. I go in and I look at what I can and see what can I learn from this. Did they make mistakes in this case? Are there things that they did that were really sharp that I didn't think of in our cases in Seattle?
Cases from New York, Georgia, as well as Seattle were studied during the conference. In Mesa, Sydney Eisenberg, Cronkite News.
While several police departments across Arizona took part in the conference, Phoenix PD was not present.
Hello from the children of planet Earth.
Exploring, it's the lifeblood of the mission.
Human beings are a curious bunch.
What are we going to see when we get really close?
Just because an idea is crazy, it's not necessarily wrong.
We were on our way.
You don't get anywhere until you've tested the limits.
That carries an intensity you can't imagine.
You could hear people just, whoa.
Oh my God, absolutely spectacular.
It's a rush. We ask a lot of our heroes.
We are at a remarkable moment.
We're going farther than any exploration ever has.
I'm Ted Simons, host and managing editor of Arizona Horizon. Join us each weekday at 5:30 and 10 as we bring you the top newsmakers who impact the state. We cover the stories in depth that shape and affect our local communities, and we take the time to ensure that all voices are equally heard. For more than 30 years, Arizona Horizon has been your voice and your source for what matters most, right here on Arizona PBS.
The Phoenix Police Department is looking to hire 400 new officers this year. Cronkite News reporter Bridget Dowd tells us how the department is trying to diversify its employees.
All units of the Phoenix Police Department were represented at a career fair on Friday, ranging from violent crimes to canine.
We find bad guys and we find drugs.
Lisa Fisher and her dog Jax are a part of that unit. Fisher says she thinks it's important for all types of people to be well represented in law enforcement.
I would encourage anybody who's interested in this, regardless of their gender or ethnicity, to be interested in this. Certainly, the population is comprised of many different groups of people, and it's important that, you know, everybody feels that if they want to do this, that they can do it, and certainly that's been my experience.
Interested applicants even had the opportunity to take the written exam to become an officer on Friday. After passing the written portion, applicants are required to complete a physical agility test. Valley resident Kimberly Mendez says at first she wanted to work in forensics, but now thinks she's ready to work in the field.
I looked into their website to see what the requirements were, so I got the running and the sit-ups. I'm still working on the push-up part, but I think I would be able to do it.
Phoenix PD pulled out all the stops today to give applicants an idea of what it would be like to have a career in law enforcement, including landing this A-Star helicopter right outside the Phoenix Convention Center. The helicopter wasn't the only police vehicle on site. Officers also showed off a 1950s Ford, one of their first police cars, and an RV they used for handling crimes against children. In Phoenix, Bridget Dowd, Cronkite News.
In addition to officer positions, Phoenix PD is opening up 80 communications positions. That includes 911 operators and dispatch workers. For more information about these and other law enforcement careers, visit cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
Victims of human trafficking, foster kids that have aged out of the system, and the homeless. These are groups that can feel marginalized.
But as Cronkite News reporter Kevin Gessner shows us, one Valley Center dedicated to helping these groups just got a big boost.
The Phoenix Suns Charities donated $100,000 to create a learning center at the Phoenix Dream Center to help survivors of human trafficking find a path to college.
Since the birth of the human trafficking program, the Phoenix Dream Center has catered to the lives of about 500 women. Brian Steele, executive director and CEO, says once the medical care and counseling were addressed, there was a missing piece of the puzzle to get them to the next step of their lives.
Our desire is that they would be strong, independent young women out there in the community just doing amazing things for their life, and that they really truly could move on. And so therein entered really our heart for education.
Once the education program was created, Arizona State University and Grand Canyon University offered scholarships. But after the first year, the Dream Center noticed the women were having a hard time adapting. Steele says many of the women in the program hadn't even completed 10th grade, so they needed something to help them women go from a GED program to college, and that's where the Phoenix Suns stepped in.
This Phoenix Suns Learning Center that we've opened is geared at really helping the young women transition from our program, from here, into to full-on college.
Sarah Crahan-Buell is the executive director of the Phoenix Suns Charities and says the Phoenix Suns as a whole is not afraid to dive into sensitive topics like human trafficking and making a change.
Our owner is very adamant about doing what's right and making a strong impact on kids in our community. They are our most treasured assets, you know, and if we don't help them, who is going to?
The women attend high school online, and in the evenings, interns from GCU come to help them prepare for college. Kevin Gessner, Cronkite News.
Although the next presidential election is 3 years away, groups are already working to get more people registered to vote. Cronkite News reporter Holly Bernstein shows us how the ACLU and other groups are taking on this issue now.
Why voting rights are always under attack. It's a simple situation that our participation in the government is viewed as inherently dangerous because it shifts the power from pure white supremacy to just white supremacy light.
Michael Ingram of Black Lives Matter was among local politicians and activists speaking at a panel discussing defending the right to vote Saturday, especially for those who are in the minority. The panel addressed the history and potential solutions of the goals of voting rights work, including increasing voter registration turnout and reducing racial and class disparities in voting.
Every 4 years, I get 200 complaints about people not being able to vote. And I always say, the time to worry about your voting rights isn't right before the election. It's 2 years before the election even starts.
The panel says the Supreme Court has weakened voting rights, like in Shelby County versus Holder. In 2013, the court ruled Section 4B of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 is unconstitutional. As a result, states have been able to change voting laws without federal oversight. According to ACLU, in 2016, 14 states had new voting restrictions in place. Arizona was one of those, with limitations on mail-in ballot collection. Maricopa County Recorder Adrian Fontes says one way to reduce racial and class disparities in voting is through education.
Reaching out to a lot of folks that did not necessarily have folks coming out and talking to them. So we've had different focus groups in our office talking about the issues that are of interest to a bunch of different types of communities.
Fontes also says Maricopa County is working with other counties in Arizona to share resources. Ingram said at the panel, the best way to get people to vote is to work year-round.
A little bit of training, a little bit of investment, and then I can be a better advocate for my community than you ever can be. It's about an investment, and I'm going to be there year-round talking to my folks all the time.
In downtown Phoenix, Holly Bernstein, Cronkite News.
The idea of voting centers in jails for people who have not been convicted was also discussed. Fontes says he'll have to coordinate with Sheriff Penzone, and while he decided to hold off on the idea for now while working on other implementations, he says the idea will be explored for future elections.
New research shows that millennials are becoming more skeptical of old school politics and challenging how both parties represent our country.
Reporter Emily Richardson talked to members of both parties about their thoughts on the future of our government.
The oldest millennials turned 35 last year, making them eligible to hold all government offices. And there's interest. A Harvard IOP poll says that since the 2016 election, 25% of young Americans are more motivated to get involved in politics. Herschel Fink, executive director of the Arizona Democratic Party, says he is witnessing this trend, especially after the 2016 election.
Millennials should get involved, and we welcome them and we want them to be part of the Democratic Party. And I think it's a good thing for them to run, to be involved in campaigns. And I think young people need to come and be at the table, make sure that we're talking about their issues.
Torrin Sinclair, communication director of the Arizona Republican Party, says the majority of their staff are millennials.
We have a very engaged young base here in the Republican Party, and we're proud of it. You see more millennials engaged on the issues that they want to be engaged with, and they're registering Republican.
But Democrats are also seeing more engagement.
It's lit in a fire underneath myself, under a lot of my colleagues as well, to get more involved.
With the country becoming more racially and ethnically diverse, being less likely to affiliate with a religion, having a better education, and a longer life expectancy, the composition of the political parties has changed. Pew Research shows both parties have become more diverse in the past 24 years. However, the Democratic Party has become much more diverse, while the Republican Party remains overwhelmingly white. Fink thinks it's an exciting time to be a Democrat and is hopeful for the future of his party. But there's an emerging rift in the Republicans with the rise of those who classify themselves as the alt-right.
We're in the process of seeing a Republican civil war.
College Republican Lauren Castle does not think the divide will negatively affect their party.
I believe a majority of the movement is going towards this nationalist, populist type of conservatism.
But all agree future politicians should be able to work on both sides of the aisle.
We need to elect people that will work with Republicans on our side.
I think both parties have their core beliefs, but working together is never a bad thing.
At the end of the day, most candidates run on the policy that they want to make America a better place. If they truly believe that, they should be able to sit down at the table and put their personal politics aside.
In Phoenix, Emily Richardson, Cronkite News.
Maricopa County voters were greeted by a new system of voting today, Election Day. Cronkite News reporter Stephen Sidner traveled to the Elections Department to see how voters were adjusting to the change.
For those wanting to cast their vote today, there are some changes to the election process in Maricopa County. First, all voters were mailed their ballots for today's election.
I want folks to make sure that they make their selection on the ballots, sign that outside envelope because that's how we verify your identity, and then bring it on into one of our 27 ballot centers.
Second, replacing more than 700 smaller polling locations with those 27 ballot centers. Maricopa County residents traveled to those ballot centers to drop off their ballot, walk in, and fill one out.
Oh, I had read that I could come to this location and vote, and I crossed my finger I had read it right, or else I was going to go hop the train back over to my P.O. box and pick up my ballot.
Joseph Risha was able to vote despite the fact he didn't have his ballot with him. They printed one and he filled it out. Risha says it was very easy compared to previous elections.
I had that problem of the not enough locations. I got caught in the, fortunately where I was at, I didn't have to wait so many extra hours like people did, but it was a long wait.
That's the exact problem that Fontes is trying to prevent.
The great majority of voters in Maricopa County do vote by mail. And in jurisdictional elections like this, the number of people actually showing up to the polls has diminished from something in 2013 it was less than 5%, and in 2015 it was less than 3%.
Even though it's a jurisdictional election, Risha wouldn't miss it.
Issues are really important. In this case, I'm voting for school bonds for the district that I live in. I think that's really valid.
Risha encourages others to make sure they fulfill their civic duty. In Phoenix, Stephen Sidner, Cronkite News.
You still have a little time left to get in your vote. Ballot centers close tonight at 7.
To become a firefighter, there's a strenuous physical exam, but I learned even after they earn their spot in the department, the training doesn't stop. A firefighter's work doesn't stop at the station door. Though they may be off duty, firefighters still have to train to be able to handle the harsh conditions they could face next shift.
physical fitness is one of the most important things we have.
According to a 2010 University of Maryland study, aerobic fitness and resistance to muscle fatigue are the two key areas for firefighters to pass a physical fitness test.
Tempe Fire Medical Rescue requires our members to do physical training for at least 1 hour per day. Usually crews take care of that in the morning, get their day started. If you are Tier 4, the least physically fit, we will remove you from frontline service.
Don't stop, you're almost there.
While many firefighters may exercise through different activities, the Great Ape Gym in Phoenix focuses on fitness through skills courses designed for firefighters by firefighters.
At first, it started just really small, just a couple firemen in the backyard of somebody's house working, and more people kept showing up,
Now all of these courses here give firefighters and people who want to join the academy a little bit of a taste of what they could be facing every day while trying to battle a fire.
There's no real place for us to go to hone these skills except for something like this.
Practicing the skills before needing them can also save a firefighter's life.
From lifting, cardio, and doing these skills courses helps prevent those injuries from occurring.
However, too much physical fitness can also create a problem.
We don't want our firefighters to expend themselves in physical training and not be able to respond physically to calls.
A fitness balance designed to save lives.
Try to do what we said we would do in our job interviews, is make the fire department better, make the process better, and this is our attempt at doing that.
1, 2, 3, hey! Firefighters are required to go through a physical test each year.
Thanks for joining us for this special edition of Cronkite News. For more multimedia coverage, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org and click on the Government and Justice tabs.